Actually, I only have 2 slides to focus on. I know the title in the book, in the actual agenda, is quite a long title, but I thought I'll short it by just saying, growing South Africa's wealth through digital innovations. And there's 3 things I want to do today. I'll speak a little bit about the problem, but we can go over that quite quickly because, we have 2 days of people telling us about unemployment and skills and all of those kind of things. And then I want to focus on this, on this effective production model, which Brian and Wendy helped me to make the case. So I'll build on their presentations and their hypothesis and add a few things. And then lastly, I want to show how that model is actually in work here at the CSIR, making a change and growing the wealth of this country. So what is the problem that we face? We know about unemployment, and Wendy showed quite a nice graph of how this has changed over the last few years. But I want to make 2 extra points. One, and this is very scary, apart from the 6.2 unemployed, there's an additional 3.1 million that has given up. So they're not even counted on the unemployed. They have given up looking for work. Of the 6.3 million employed, half of them hasn't worked in the last 5 years. And that is a very scary thought when you start thinking about that. The second one is the skills gap that we have. This is the top 10 skills that's in high demand on LinkedIn. 9 out of the 10 are ICT skills, software programming, Java development, statistical analysis and data mining at the very top. But we also have a loss of these advanced skills. And there's a report, the WEF report, that shows that we actually have a net export of these kind of skills. We're losing people. We had a deep learning in Durban about a few weeks ago, and we had to invite 3 South Africans who's actually working as principal researchers at Google DeepMind in London back to South Africa to come and explain to us about analytics. All of them from WITS, so I have to ask you why. Why is the WITS people leaving this country? Oh, they're in demand. So we have a loss of these advanced skills, and this is coupled with the fact that we're actually a net importer of goods and services in the ICT space. So this triple threat, if I may use that word, is a problem for South Africa. But let's study the ICT sector a little bit better based on this widening gap between the number of ICT goods and services that we import and that we export. Yes, South Africa, there's a few good things. South Africa, the ICT is a 3% contribution to GDP at the moment, which has just surpassed agriculture. There's a big growth in mobile technology, internet penetration, smart devices. We have good policies, actually implementation policies that's being implemented, like the National ICT roadmap. We've got our Office of Digital Advantage, which is here at the CSIR, making sure that roadmap gets implemented. And the stock prices of some of our ICT firms have increased in the last few years. But the problem is, there's been a 100% increase in the last 3 years between the deficits, which was 42 million in 2011 to being 97 billion. The deficit between our export and imports in 2014. 10% of all South African goods that's imported are ICT goods and services. These are things like radio and television and communication equipment, online services. But we do have some exports, and it's mostly related to our telecommunications, broadcasting, telecommunications, and information. And we have quite a bunch of SMMEs that's in this space. So as this gap is increasing, what can we do? Because the one slide I haven't showed here is, in the last few years, our government debt to GDP is amongst the highest it has been in 20 years. So I'm not an economist, we have one here. But the way I see it is we're borrowing money from other people. We take it then to buy goods from them, and very little of the money stays in South Africa. So for me, that is a problem, and I'd love to sit down with the economists to explain that. So how do we actually grow wealth in a country? Some of the models out there saying you need a lot of young firms. They call them gazelles. Because gazelles, whose young firms that has been in existence in less than 5 years, are those who have patents and they have disruptive technologies and they're trying things. But in South Africa, if you look at sort of the slide here, The gazelles is the 2 to 5. This is this black block, 6 to 9 years that the company has been in existence. It's a yellow block. That share in terms of the number of firms in South Africa is steadily decreasing. So we have less young firms, less people innovating, less people disrupting our economy. The other problem is the exit rates are also low, which means those who are not productive stay there, they try, they struggle along for 10, for 15 years. So these are good resources, good people that we could have deployed in other productive firms that, and reallocating those resources as skilled labor. And most South African startups operate at a small scale. Few of them have ambitions for international markets and taking over the world, which means we actually have a low number of unicorns in South Africa. And unicorns are sort of privately held companies that are valued at $1 billion or more. Let's look at how this looks in the world. And I'm going to stand on this side so that you guys can see, just so that I can walk around a little bit as more. We do have one, which is sort of Promisodar Holdings, which is a food industry company, valued over $1 billion. You guys know the sort of on-demand companies, the Ubers, right? The Airbnbs, Didi Chuxing, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the Chinese equivalent of Uber. We know about the big data companies, and Peloton Technologies is one of the biggest analytics companies in the world, valued at $20 billion US. What do? They do counterterrorism using analytics. They help the military figuring out where will terrorist actions, which is random by the best model, is going to happen. That's the kind of things that's one. The other thing they do is doing a lot of financial technology analytics for US firms. Let's look at another example. There's a lot of mobile software services. That's particularly in the UK and in Europe. There's actually a lot of health firms in Germany in particular. There's a company called, if I can read, Otto Rock Healthcare, $3.5 billion US. And one of the biggest growing thing is financial tech. Now, when you guys go Google afterwards, just go Google the unicorns in the financial tech, and you'll see how fast they have grown and gotten to the $1 billion valuation in less than 4 years. And these are companies like Stripe, which does payment solutions, and a whole lot of other financial technology companies. Something that we are rated by the WEF as being very good in. Second last year, actually, in the global economic competitive report. So the question is, can we create these young firms called gazelles? Can we create these young firms called unicorns? And what do we as a country have to do to get us there? So now we have to ask ourselves the question, but why do startups struggle in South Africa? What's the problem? So the one thing is the environment. You know, graduates need to secure income as soon as possible because they have to support an extended family. Their family and their friends are unlikely to be in a position to provide them capital, to bootstrap, which happens quite a lot in the US. And then do we have that entrepreneurial mindset and propensity to take that risk, to take that leap, which, believe me, is a tough thing to do. If I ask anyone here, you know, who would want to start the company, probably 70% would put their hands up. Who would take the risk to do it? Probably 20%. That's why we're all sitting here. Then there's the people, right? Entrepreneurs struggle to have business acumen, understanding the market, how do you market your products, how to manage a business, which is a key thing that Brian said about leadership in terms of business. How do I enlist support of a business mentor? Sometimes we're going at it alone or one-sided. We have techies, all these engineers that want to start businesses, but they don't have the business aptitude. Then we have all these business guys, these guys who studied MBAs, and they want to start a business, but they don't have the technology and products. And they don't see that we actually need to combine them. We do have programs. We have a lot of incubators, but incubators often wait for the entrepreneur. They don't start the entrepreneur. They wait for an entrepreneur and then help them. And very often that entrepreneur has an idea, but that's why it takes them 5 years to develop the technology and product before they go to market. And then we have a lot of solutions that get built. A lot of businesses comes to these programs and we build solutions. We have hackathons and code sprints and we build solutions. But we forget that can we now build a business on top of that solution? Yes, the solution is there. The business problem gets solved. But what about building a business? So now I'm coming to sort of my hypothesis. what I call the effective production model. Effective production is key. We've heard this all day, right? You need to produce faster. That's the flexibility thing, so frequent new products. That's the Zara model, which I love. You have to have dependable delivery, low price, high margin, or both, short delivery lead time, on specification products. And then all of these external things changes how your internal operations should be. To get to that high total productivity, you must have reliable operations. That's where the automation message came through from Wendy. The ability to change, leadership that Brian said. Error-free processes, again, that's what the digital automation helps you, right? Brian said take the human out of the loop so that the computer can make sure you're consistent. Fast throughput, bring all those value chains together, converge, so that you can have fast throughput. You don't need to wait for the person to check how many stock you have in the shop. That information must be immediately available at your supplier so that tomorrow the stock can be back into your shop. And that is how you then create a lot of production quick, efficiently. Secondly, apart from effective production, you must combine it with efficient entrepreneurship. And this is sort of the model that I want to change from the sort of incubator model. You must have a lot of digital prototypes, which the likes of the CSIR do. That's what we do. We have a lot of products, a lot of services, a lot of technology demonstrators. But in parallel, can you now get business type people to be involved while that technology gets developed, so that they can actually start understanding the correct business model associated with that particular technology, and so that they can start developing that business model and that business plan. Then obviously they must present that business concept, that business model, and that must be vetted in a very proper way. That's your first stage gig. Then you must provide them an ecosystem where they can go for a year or two and develop that business. If you don't provide them that ecosystem where they're safe, yes, you can have a lot of stage gates, you can check their progress every 2 months because you need to push them. But if you don't provide that ecosystem where they can say, yes, I've got enough income that I can give to my family, but I've got a year in which I can build this model. And this is sort of where you then have efficient entrepreneurship with the right ecosystem support. Not my last slide, but my last point in terms of this model is you must combine this with innovative processes. So let's go back a bit in history. I know this is just my background slide to create the emotion, right? It shows growth. This is income per capita in the world, and it has grown over the last 100 or so years, and that is health in the last 100 years. So we as a world has gotten richer and healthier and lived longer. Where did it start? Well, back in the day when we were still farming, but back in the day when we were still farming, we were dependent on nature to produce, right? What was our job? Is to understand nature so that at the right time, we either pick the products, or you go and dig into the ground to go find what nature produced. That's why we have a big hole in Kimberley, right? People were digging. So our job was just to understand nature and to actually manage ourselves according to what nature produced. Then after the first and second sort of industrial revolution, it was tools and machines that produced in factories. So it wasn't us making something, machines made things. And all our job was to make sure that those machines are put together in the right process so that what comes out at the end of the factory floor was right. That's why Henry Ford made so much money, because that's what he figured out. That was the innovation, putting machines together in the right assembly line so that the product is consistent and delivered. Then we got to the computer-driven age. Then it was actually us producing things. We were paid for reports. So this is what I would term the consulting era, which seems to come to an end now in South Africa. But it was us sitting in front of computers producing things that we were paid for, producing knowledge, producing reports, producing new thoughts. Where are we going? Almost. We're going to digital-driven products, where our own creations, our AI, is producing. So now we have to figure out, but how do our jobs change? It will impact agriculture, even though it's a primary sector. I went to a farm in Helderberg, which is just outside of Johannesburg, And this guy essentially automated his whole farming process, right? So his job isn't now to go pick and whatever harvest crop. He's got a tractor that does it. His job is to sit back and essentially do nothing. Tractor does everything. But his job is now actually to be innovative, to understand all that information is coming to him from climate to weather, from his soil samples, from where the tractor is, all of that kind of things, and actually understand the farming process better. Is he a digital service? Yes, according to Airbus. He's got integrative technologies and he's changed his business model based on those technologies. Have he lost jobs? No. The people who harvested before are now his gardeners. And they can use their creativity to make the garden beautiful instead of just going to harvest crop. And that service is now outsourced, so those people can build a company. The people that used to drive the tractors are now his mechanics because he can't afford to lose that tractor. Those people must actually be able to manage and do the tractor as soon as possible. And I can go through each one as to how factories has changed, how computing services industry has changed. But for time, my point is just this, is you have to, for effective production, you have to combine machines or AI's consistency and speed, because that's what the machine does, with human insights and creativity, because that's what we're good at, and innovative business processes. If you don't do those three together, you won't have the actual solution, which is this. Novel digital platforms, that's the machine, the AI, combined with advanced expertise, that's your human being, combined with innovative, disruptive processes, that will create entrepreneurial development that addresses the market. And you can't have this alone. You can't just have CSIR creating fancy technologies and not working with partners or doing themselves other bits. You have to have somebody that does entrepreneurial development with those technologies. You have to have somebody that studies, and we have our business scientists here, that studies how innovative, disruptive processes change because we have a new technology or a new platform. You have to have the human expertise. Who's going to run those technologies? Who's going to use the technologies to create something? And that's what the CSIR does, right? We're trying to enable the South African industry. So we want to work with GIP so that we can understand the entrepreneurial and business models. We transfer technology with local industries. We want to work with TransUnion because we've created analytics platforms that might help them. And we want to disrupt industries. These new technologies that's going to change the world. I'm just going to go through a few quick examples using that model. This is a Where is My Transport? In 2007, we supported it with our South African-Finland partnership program, so FIPA, through DST and CSIR and the Finnish embassy. We developed the capacity of these guys to develop mobile apps. So we've given them the mobile apps, all the data, how to analyze data. They were clever enough to understand that we can use this to actually create commuter travel plans, to get real-time updates. And now they're a startup, 30 people, they're based in London and in South Africa, and they've contributed to the GDP. Where's my transport? The market, public transport. Another example, digital innovation, AFIS, our Advanced Fire Information System. We created these algorithms, 4-day fire danger forecast and spread. We work with firefighters and disaster management agencies, and we've created together a command and control platform so that you can actually use not just the mobile app, but the digital platform with the fire crew for real-time fire spread. Algorithms plus human beings in a control platform doing our fire disaster management better. Second last slide. Again, we created a patented platform with algorithms to do broadcasting over mobile. And you'll see this just after the panel discussion. We've trained unemployed youth. We've gone into townships and looked at programs that does unemployment and that gets youth together. And we've trained them on media broadcasting. We've created a new industry that combines this digital platform with the youth, that creates the content. Now they can broadcast to anywhere in the world, emerging economies to emerging economies. They can now create content that might be used in Hollywood, in Nigeria, and they can broadcast it from here. And again, I don't want to spend too much time here because you'll see the demonstration afterwards. So yes, digital innovation can create additional jobs, but we must grow new SMEs, I'm hoping we'll see an ICT unicorn in the next 5 years, otherwise we as CSIR haven't done our job. Employment of youth, export-based revenue. Those were the examples I've shown you. It must be an ecosystem-based approach. It must be, some people must do the technology, some must do the entrepreneurial development, the market understanding, some must create those disruptive business models, and some must use the human capacity of the human beings. And we must scale it. That's why I drew it like this. We must scale this. This is scalable. That's what digital technologies allows you to do. This whole model, of which I've given you 3 use cases, can be scaled. And if we do that, we will ultimately grow the wealth of this country. Thank you.